The movie begins by showing two girls named Sloane and Katie, who at that time they were both attending a party with their friends, and the teenagers were seen celebrating by drinking some alcohol, telling stories while having fun together. A few days later, Katie and Sloane then asked permission from their mother to go on vacation to their uncle's farm, which is located in a village very far from residential areas, and they also planned to go on an expedition, because soon they will get a job in organic farming and farm management. The next morning, the uncle named Jason then picked up the two girls to take them to the intended rural place. And when he got there, Jason immediately left them temporarily, while leaving a message to the two girls to always be careful during the expedition on the farm. But without the two girls realizing, there were two mysterious men who were secretly watching them and eyeing them from a distance. Because they were tired after traveling far enough, Katie and Sloane then stopped by a cafe to just rest and also order food.
Thank you. Look great.
But strangely, when the two girls were busy relaxing suddenly, the two people who had previously watched them came there by inviting them to get acquainted. And the two men introduced themselves as Jed and Lucas.
We also want to hit up Brooklyn, check out some places where they film scenes.
From their conversation, Sloane, who was interested after seeing the good looks of the two men there, also began to tell about their destination, which would go to her uncle's ranch.
Besides, look at that ass. Which one, right?
Knowing this, Jed then offered the two girls a ride and said that their residence was also close to the farm in question. Because there was no suspicion at all, the two girls finally chose to accept Jed and Lucas's offer. However, when the car passed the ranch area, Jed did not even drop them off but invited and took them to his residence. Although initially hesitant, Sloane, who was attracted by their good looks, finally agreed to the decision. And not long after arriving at their residence, Jed's mother, named Gemma, then warmly welcomed the arrival of the two girls and even entertained them by providing several dishes of food and supplies at the time of later expeditions on the farm.
Whipped cream would be awesome.
But strangely, not long after that, suddenly Sloane and Katie felt dizzy and nauseous in their stomachs. Realizing that the food had been mixed with high doses of anesthetic, quickly Sloane and Katie immediately fled from the place. And from here, we finally found out that the family was none other than a group of psychopaths who often kidnap beautiful girls to be sold and used as satisfactions for mashermen. Even after the victims are no longer needed, the girls will automatically be killed. Long story short, the two girls were captured and brought back into their house. After regaining consciousness, the two girls then found themselves handcuffed by iron chains in a container located in the wilderness. Of course, those who panicked immediately shouted as hard as they could for help, but unfortunately, the two girls' screams were not heard by anyone.
Let me show you our amenities. That there is
A few moments later, Jed came, while threatening and scaring the two girls about their fate, who would soon be sold to satisfy the buyer's lust. Not long after that, a man named Boris then came there to check and see the condition of his victims this time. Fortunately, not long after, suddenly came a sheriff named Andrew who immediately pointed a gun at the criminal. Although at the beginning he was happy because he felt he would be saved, Katie and Sloane had to be panicked again after learning that it turned out that Andrew was also part of their group. Even with his depraved, Andrew forced Katie to do a bed scene with him. While elsewhere, Jason, who was anxious because he had not heard from his niece all day, chose to come to check on the ranch. But when he got there, he was even more worried after getting news from the ranch manager, who informed him that the two girls were not there. Back to the place of confinement this time, it was Sloane's turn to be sold by these psychopaths, so that from here, Katie, who heard Sloane's screams, she began to feel unable to hear the torture. Not even just once, Again, a man in a pig mask who had a tattoo on his arm also came, with the aim of giving vent to his depraved lust for Sloane. Meanwhile, Jason, who had just arrived at the local police station, he then reported about the disappearance of his two nieces, but unfortunately who received the report was Andrew, the psychopathic police officer, so that Jason's report was not responded at all. And in the end, Jason, who is known to work as an FBI agent, chooses to look for Katie and Sloane without the help of the local police. Back at the place of confinement when Jed was on guard alone, Boris then came while giving orders to immediately execute the two girls, because now Jason, who is a member of the FBI, as well as the uncle of the two women, has moved to look for his two nieces. Then a few hours later, when it was Travis's turn to guard alone, Katie secretly planned something to escape by flirting with Travis. And once Travis was caught off guard, Katie quickly bit Travis's neck to death. After that, Katie rushed to get the handcuff key and tried to escape before the other psychopaths came there. Meanwhile, Andrew, who wanted to travel to the place of confinement, then contacted Boris so that they returned to check the whereabouts of Katie and Sloane. But once Andrew arrived at the place, suddenly he was shocked when he saw Travis's corpse, and the two girls had run away from there. On the other hand, Katie and Sloane, who had managed to escape, then decided to return there with the aim of avenging her. And it was seen that they immediately prepared several weapons, including devising a plan to finish off the psychopaths. While at the mini-market, Katie then asked the shopkeeper about the address where Boris lived, including Andrew the policeman.
Named Boris.
And sure enough, when Boris had just arrived at his house, he was surprised after hearing the sound of music that turned on by itself. Then when Boris checked the origin of the sound secretly, Katie immediately hit his head from behind. After waking up, Boris finds himself tied to a table, and the two girls plan to torture him slowly. Two hours later, Katie manages to get information about the whereabouts of the man in the pig mask, and without much ado, she kills Boris on the spot before continuing her revenge on the next target. Shortly after that, it was seen that Jason, who had gotten a clue about the search for his two nieces, had just arrived at the Boris residence to find information, but he was immediately shocked after seeing the state of Boris, who turned out to be dead. The two girls then drove to the psychopath who was their next target in order to immediately take revenge again. And when the perpetrator was caught off guard, Sloane immediately attacked him, which then the perpetrator was dragged by car along the road. Even the perpetrator, who was now dying, was burned alive. Back to Jason, who had been suspicious of Andrew from the start, then called Katie's cell phone, and sure enough, Katie's cell phone ringtone was heard in Andrew's pants pocket. When Jason realized it quickly, Andrew pointed his gun and even made Jason unconscious in that place. Jason was then held captive in his residence. Even there were also seen two other women who were victims of recent kidnappings. Luckily, a few hours later, Katie and Sloane arrived and quickly hit Andrew's head. Despite begging to be released, Andrew, who was tied up without much ado, was immediately shot by the two girls. Now it was Gemma's turn, and her children who were the next targets. And when Gemma was relaxing while drinking unexpectedly, she was immediately unconscious because it was known that the drink had been mixed with anesthetic by Sloane. After realizing, Gemma was then deliberately forced to watch the torture suffered by Jed before her eyes. Not even that after Jed was killed, Katie also immediately forced Lucas to finish off his own mother, Gemma. But because Lucas refused quickly, Katie shot him there.
Well, again with the gun in his own.
After seeing her two sons killed, It is Gemma's turn to be killed using a lawnmower, so that in the end, their revenge on the psychopaths is finally avenged.
Go. Let me go.
I don't think so.
You promise?
I won't tell you.
Long story short, a few days later, after the incident, Katie and Sloane have returned to their mother's house, and now they are getting ready to continue their vacation that was interrupted earlier, and the movie ends.